and knowledge is power. And knowledge is the first fundamental thing of leadership. And you need to have that to carry into knowing a little bit about everything, but then trusting and having good leaders in those positions that are executing in the right way. And you know how to have an accountability to they're doing the thing that you expect them to do, and that you have an airworthy or, a trustworthy business. And I think that is so important. That's been ingrained in me in all my training and flying and things like that.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow Podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host. I'm so glad to have you back listening to the show or watching in recorded mode the video too, if that's the case. So we got a great guest today, Ryan Gibson, former pilot, and we just were chatting a little bit. So I think this is going to be a really good show, especially if you're busy. Like I love the dental group because you guys are so smart. The Dental Association must be one of the best associations there is, because dentists generally, the dental practice profession are really good at buying real estate and having that go on at the same time. But just an example, I'm not excluding anybody else on purpose or anything. It's just some of you guys are busy, and this is a great opportunity for you to participate in opportunities more passively. So Ryan, if you wouldn't mind, let's kind of start at the beginning. What was it you were doing before you started in this, or when you started into this? Was there sort of a tipping point that made you think, gee, I really want to go all in with this type of approach here,
Yeah, absolutely. So I was an airline pilot for nearly 20 years. And I think what's really interesting is that, I really wanted to get into real estate, right? I read the books and kind of fell in love with it. And as an airline pilot, I have a lot of free time, good travel, and, you don't have to spend a lot of money on going places. And so I kind of did what everybody wants to do when they get into real estate, which is go buy a bunch of single family rentals. And what I found is that, I thought maybe I'd buy one in every layover city that I have a layover in or something, to kind of combine, working actively on a real estate rental portfolio, but also having it happen while I'm sort of moonlighting as a pilot. And I kind of ran into, I did really well. I made a really good ROI. The return on investment was great as a percentage. But what I really found was that my ROI in life wasn't great. I wasn't actually making the time back that I was really trying to go after, right? And so with my ROI in life kind of low, I was like, man, there's a lot of people. I know there's a lot of people out there that are working a high-paid professional job, W-2 income, getting taxed, for that, but looking for diversification and wanting to be into real estate, but just not want the work that goes, into it. So from there, this is about over 12 years ago now, I started Spartan Investment Group, which helps pilots and doctors and dentists and all the like invest in passive real estate investment opportunities and get the benefits of depreciation and all the things that go along with real estate, like cash flow and upside, without having to go have a low ROI on their life, right? And so I think that really kind of was what formed the vision for Spartan Investment Group, which is to help passive investors find well-vetted investment opportunities in key markets. And so the thing that we really focused on was, okay, what asset class, what properties do we want to actually go out and focus on? Because we don't want to just go buy car washes and apartments and self-storage and do all these like random things. We wanted to get really good at one thing. And we wanted to make sure that one thing had the fundamentals for a lifetime. And we quickly settled on self-storage because what we realized is that a lot of people, 1 in every 3 Americans has actually used a self-storage. And you compare that to 1 in every 5 Americans has flown on an airplane, as an example. So when you think about how many people actually use self-storage, it's an incredible amount of people. It's a need that everybody has. And if you think why people use it was the most interesting, and I know Americans, we have too much stuff, but the 5 Ds, death in the family, displacement, like moving, downsizing, they're moving into a condo, or maybe baby boomers are moving into their, place they want to live permanently. And divorce was a big one. And then also diapers, families that are growing, you're having kids, you're upgrading your house. And even the 6th D, which is disease, right? COVID created a huge boom of self-storage. But our takeaway here was like, it doesn't matter what the economy is doing. People are using this asset class no matter what. And it's really become an extension of people's homes. And so we saw the trend here, but I think what we really liked too is we wanted to be in something that was tech enabled, something that could scale more efficiently. And that's what we've done in our portfolios. We actually have a very unique way that we actually book our units. And we're one of the only operators doing it in the industry, which is really cool. So that gave us a platform to serve the people that we were targeting. I was an airline pilot. I'm flying with people all the time, and the pilot would look over at me and say, "Hey, what do you do on your days off?" "Well, I do this self-storage thing." And 9 times out of 10 they would say, "I've always wanted to own one of those." Those I know somebody who bought one 30 years ago, and he just sits, does margaritas on the beach now because that thing is just cash flowing, or he sold it and made a bunch of money. I've always wanted to do one. And so, we gave them that gateway of saying, okay, for 50K or 100K, you can invest in one with us and you get all the same benefits like you would if you were investing yourself with without all the headaches. So that's kind of how we got started. And over time, I've been an airline pilot for over 20 years now. I've kind of turned that into, a leave of absence and no longer work at the airlines because of my company. And we've now built $1 billion portfolio of self-storage across 15 states and over 7 million square feet. So it's been very exciting.
That's amazing. Yeah. I remember in the 90s, self-storage really took off. There were studies that were done. And what's interesting is a lot of people don't realize a lot of colleges and universities, they'll take their business, students and management students and graduate students and do studies on these different asset classes. And sure enough, self-storage came up as a real big hit. And all of a sudden, everybody wanted self-storage.
Yeah.
But what's really good about it is I was one of the ones that bought a bunch of, renter-occupied properties. I mean, I had several hundred rental units at one point, but it was unbelievably grueling. I mean, just the stuff that you go through. And yet I'm looking at these storage facilities, there's no bathroom, there's no kitchens. You don't have all that stuff that breaks down and goes bad and causes leaks and furnaces and water tank. None. And nobody's there. They come a couple of times a year to put something in or take something out, and that's the extent of it. So it's unbelievably low. I hate was going to use the word low risk, but very little management involved compared to renter occupied properties. But the fact that it can be syndicated like this, I mean, I'm 63 years old, and it fits my lifestyle now perfectly because I actually don't buy properties directly myself anymore. I do, fractional ownership and things like that because of my lifestyle. I like the guy at the story with the sipping margaritas on the beach, because that's what I want to do. And it's hard to do that when your phone's ringing off the hook all the time. But when you do it the way you're describing, so everybody listen, this is really important. When you do it this way, okay, you have the benefits of ownership without all the downside headaches, right? So, in any case, I want to kind of go back just a little bit, Ryan. When it came to transitioning. The world of aviation, I've never been a pilot, but I worked for NASA for a while. And so I got to be around a lot of, pilots. So it was at Langley Air Force Base. So it was Air Force. Very structured, very organized. So going from that into entrepreneurship and, how did that challenge you personally, professionally? Were you able to take some of what you learned as far as your skills and aptitude from being a pilot into the world of investing to help you? I mean, it seems to me that would be a really good transition because you can take what you had from before, apply it to this world, which, historically has not been, certainly not as well organized and structured as aviation, So I'm probably going too long on this, but you kind of get the gist of it. Was there, what were some of the challenges for you, if you don't mind,
No, I would say let's start with the strengths, right? As an airline pilot, you're checklist disciplined and you've got a good playbook on exactly how you fly the plane. And regardless of the conditions, you can fly the plane and you can get it to the different destinations based on your training, right? And I think that is monumental. And so that's been instilled in me. And so everything we do is a checklist-driven approach at Spartan. We have a 700-point due diligence checklist, and I'm happy to share that due diligence book that we wrote with your listeners. We can drop a link in the show notes or whatever, but that's huge. And then I think as an airline pilot, and for those that are listening that are airline pilots would probably recognize, with what I'm saying is, and as a captain of an airplane, you have to extend a tremendous amount of trust, but verify to every single department. So your dispatcher, your baggage handlers, you have to make sure the baggage handlers put the bags on right, but you're not going to go down there and watch them load the bags, but you're going to check their paperwork, you're going to check the weight and balance, you're going to check with the mechanic and the maintenance log on a aircraft. You're going to do all those things, but you have to be knowledgeable in a lot of different areas to make sure that you understand that you have a clean and airworthy airplane that you're about to push back from. And that in itself builds a leader, right? You build leadership through that. And so when you get and you start a business or a platform, you need to take that type of mentality into your business, which is, I'm not going to be the one, doing every little thing in the business, but I need to have knowledge, and knowledge is power, and knowledge is the first fundamental thing of leadership. And you need to have that to carry into knowing a little bit about everything, but then trusting and having good leaders in those positions that are executing in the right way, and you know how to have an accountability to they're doing the thing that you expect them to do, and that you have an airworthy or a trustworthy business. And I think that is so important. That's been ingrained in me in all my training and flying and things like that. But self-storage is easy because it's not life or death. Airplanes are life or death. If you take an airplane in the air and mess something up, you and the rest of the passengers are going down, right? So having that sort of mentality is really, I think, been really important. And what I always tell investors that are thinking about doing anything, even investing passively, it's like knowledge, people, action are my three things, right? Knowledge, you have to learn about what you're doing, and you have to be knowledgeable generally or even deeply in what you do. And then you have to be around the right people, because the right knowledge and the wrong people are no good, or no knowledge and the wrong people, it doesn't matter, right? Because you're not doing the right thing for you. And then action, you actually have to do it. I mean, we spent 2 years learning about self-storage in the industry before we even had purchased our first property. And of course, along the way, we met a lot of really good people and a lot of bad people, and we've figured out who the right people are to work with. And I think that's so important. I think as a pilot, you sometimes think that you're the most important person, and some people might argue that you are, but you have to learn to work as a team, and you have to crew resource manage through things. And so I think that's pretty critical. So I'd say, nothing but positive experiences from aviation to doing real estate. I think it's been a great transition overall.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And also I want to mention this. Earlier I mentioned dentists. We on our team, we have it's called the Global Investigation Team. We have agents in 38 states, and in those 38 states were more than 60 MSAs, meaningful statistical markets. But in any case, pilots are one of the top 7 groups of investors that we work with. We've identified over several decades in thousands of transactions. Is there a pattern? What demographically, sociographically, as far as vocation? As far as vocation goes, pilots are at the top of the list. And one of the key traits, Ryan, that struck me was the fact when something doesn't go right, when something goes wrong in the air, your training prepares you to be able to make decisions quickly, based on facts and information. But you can't call a committee when you're 30,000 feet in the air. You've got seconds sometimes to react. So that trait right there, it's my opinion, I value as one of the most valuable traits that pilots bring to this investing world. The fact that you can gather information quickly, you're already prepared, you've trained for this kind of stuff, and you know how to make decisions quickly. And that really serves you well in the world of real estate, because sometimes things will surprise you. People, when you're dealing with people, it's like a human relations business, and human nature by itself is a little bit chaotic and random, So in any case, kudos to you, for bringing that to the table. Yeah.
That's a great perspective, because you're right. I mean, we spend every 9 months, we're getting specialized training in what goes wrong. And maybe this will be very comforting to the flyers out there that are a little nervous. But when we go to training, it's all we do is what goes wrong. We fail engines, fail hydraulics, collapse the gear, set things on fire. We do that so when something goes wrong, it's just like, oh, this is what we've been trained to do. And our training kicks in, and we can make decisions and go quickly on things. We also are trained to, time or no time, right? Do I have time to think about what I'm doing and call in a committee like, over the ACARs or over the communication system? And can I build my team? Who is on my team very quickly? Or is this a hair on fire? I have to get the airplane on the ground. I don't have the time to call a committee, right? And so
Right.
there's some really good mental training on, do I have time or no time at all? And so,
Yeah.
and real estate moves pretty slowly. It's
Yeah.
not a fast changing market. It takes a long time for,
Right.
interest rates went way up and it took a while for values to follow, right? Or interest rates go way down. It takes a while for the market to follow. And so
Yeah.
I think it's nice to be able to have a committee and advisors to sort of help through some of the decision
Yeah.
making. But yeah, quick on your feet is really good. It makes me, probably a little easier to work with because I don't take a long time to make a decision
Yeah.
on stuff.
Want to learn what's working right now in real estate? Then don't miss Monday Night Live, happening every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Each week, we bring you expert training on real estate investing, agent attraction, lead generation, marketing, and AI-powered strategies to help you work smarter and scale faster. You'll also hear inspiring success stories and lessons learned from some of the most successful real estate leaders and investors in the industry. Whether you're a brand new agent, a seasoned investor, or building a high-performing team, there's something valuable for you every single week. Learn, network, grow. Save your seat today and join us this Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Monday Night Live. We can't wait to see you there.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny. It reminds me of something I learned when I first went to work for NASA. One of the first things we were told was, this was during the space shuttle years. I was on the space shuttle project, is that, I mean, it was so awesome because one of the original followed guys, the command center directors was still there. And he came in, and we were a bunch of brand new, kids right out of college in computer science and things like that. And there was a banner up top above us that said the space shuttle is off track. And all he said was, the space shuttle on the rockets, when the rocket's going at 17,000 miles an hour, it is constantly trying to go off course. And there's a lot of mechanisms to keep it on course. He said, your job, he pointed at us, your job is to keep that space shuttle on track and course correct every single second. That's what you guys are here for. And he turned around and walked out. So it was one of the coolest moments in my professional career. But
I love it.
okay, so back here, now there's a lot of people listening who really basically, so like when you're a pilot, before you have chunks of time where you're really just not available to people on the ground or people with the properties. Same thing with doctors, dentists, sometimes lawyers. They're in their profession performing. They really can't be available on the phone to look at things. So when you look at like your own schedule as a pilot, in scheduling and having time available, how did it influence your approach when it comes to building wealth? And really, it's almost like you're taking on another full-time job. But what can you share with some of the other people that are out there running businesses or already busy, but they really want to? This really appeals to them. I mean, they just need some guidance, not just on the financials, but maybe personal guidance on how to make these adjustments.
Yeah. So I would say, I'd put it in two buckets, right? You have stuff that you want to do actively and you want to do stuff passively. So if you take the active pill, then it's hard. And I would say that, there is no silver bullet to being an active real estate investor and having a full-time job, and some of the pains that go into being, in the OR or in the flight deck or wherever you might be, because your profession demands it and demands 100% of your attention, and you can't answer that quick question or that thing that somebody needs, right? And so you actually have to work a lot harder. But I think the work that you put in was what I call scalability, right? Because you're now forcing yourself to say, I'm going to be in the OR or I'm going to be on a flight trip and I'm going to be inaccessible for a period of time. And when that happens, here's my playbook for what to do. And what I love about aviation is everything is a manual. Everything, you lose an engine, you pull out a checklist. You have a gear collapse, you pull out, you have emergency procedures, you pull out a checklist, right? Some things you memorize, but then everybody kind of knows and is trained to that. And so I would just say, you have your work cut out for you if you're going to try to do this actively with a full-time job. I did it for about 14 years, and it's a lot of work, and you kind of get used to it. I would say if you're going to be a passive investor, then that route is much more achievable, because that means you can focus and you don't have to maybe go out and build all those systems and work as hard, because you're just investing your disposable income into something like a syndication, like one of our investments, that you don't have to do anything, right? You don't have to go look at the property and study it and find the financing and run the operation and things like that. So I would say if you're going to go active, it's again, knowledge, people, action. You need to be knowledgeable about what you're doing, and it's easy to get educated because you've got your podcast and many other free resources online and training, and you can do that in your spare time, and you can pick it up and you can set it down as you see fit. But once you meet some great people, that will be pivotal in your ability to execute. And then you take some action and you actually buy the real estate. It's like, okay, now you own this stuff now. It's not pick it up and set it down and I'll get to it when I can. You're in the race. And so you've got to make sure you've got the right people to either help you manage or advise you or be working for you to manage these things. And so I would just say knowledge, people, action are kind of my default. And then when you're looking passively, in something, I apply the same thing, knowledge, people, action. You want to be educated in what you're doing before you do it. That's why we have a training academy for our investors. A lot of people are like, I've never invested passively in a syndication. So we have a whole training course on that, right? That provides our investors, free education on what's a PPM, what's a subscription agreement, how does this depreciation work, how to analyze a deal, how to look at all this stuff, right? And then you want to be around the right people, right? You want to be around, GP and sponsors that have a track record, like we do, like over a decade of doing the same thing, or, we're one of the largest operators in the industry and we've been featured in the industry magazine and just vetted by other investors and things like that. So, and then you got to actually do it, right? And so I think if you're going to do something passive or active, that's really the question you want to ask, and ask yourself, and just be ready for when you actually take action, what might happen. So
I like that. Yeah, I know that before they commit the capital, understand how the investment works, whether you're going to be passive or active. So you mentioned evaluating the properties. I've a philosophy that I've maintained for years. I compare the upside potential with the downside risk, and it's a variable equation, because you could have something that's inherently has little risk, might have tremendous upside potential, or vice versa. But for me, I'm looking for the greatest spread between the downside risk and the upside potential. But when you're analyzing properties yourself, how do you? I know this is probably a giant. The answer to this is probably a giant answer. But in terms of downside risk, alignment, and long-term sustainability, it's not just about the returns, but how do you personally evaluate the opportunities for yourself? Do you have a certain ratio formula, like does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I'm going to ask is, what's the debt? And what are all sources of debt? I think any real estate deal will go wrong with the wrong debt. So if you over leverage a property and the market conditions slightly change, you're wiped out first, right? If you have no debt on a property and the market conditions change, you get wiped out last, right? Because you have no debt, you have no creditors. So I would say I would look at the debt first. I would say, how is this leveraged? And if it's leveraged over 80%, then I would expect to see the return to be quite tremendous. Maybe 25, 30% returns. If the debt is, if it's free and clear and there's no debt on the property, I would be expecting that return to go down to the low teens, maybe even a single digit return, maybe 8 or 10%, right? No debt. That means there's no risk. Or there's always risk, but there's very little risk. And then kind of in the middle, right? If it's 50% leveraged, I would say, okay, that should be about a 14 to 16% maybe annual return. And I think people overlook that. I think people go right to the bottom line and they say, wow, look at this 25% return. I'm going to do that versus this deal that is over here at 12%, not realizing that this other deal is way over leveraged and it's the first thing to get wiped out when the market conditions change. And as we know, as real estate investors, Gary, they will change, right? We had the GFC of '08, we had COVID, we had the interest rate spike of 2022, 2023. Like, these things happen every decade, right? So it's just not it's just a matter of when. When will it happen, and what will be the black swan thing that makes the interest rates change? And so that, for
Exactly.
me, that's the number one thing. I don't really care about the return. I kind of look at how the deal is leveraged, and then
Mhm.
I'll say, okay, now I'm expecting the return to be this because of the way the deal is leveraged. And then I look at how many people are ahead of me getting paid, right? So is it a bank
Yeah.
and then me, or is it a bank and then pref equity, right? And then maybe somebody else and then me, right? And then how am I, where am I in the order of the capital that's being returned?
Mhm.
Because that to me, again, if 5 different sources, I'm expecting my return to be in the 30% range. If 2
Yeah.
sources ahead of me, I'm expecting to be in the 20%. So I kind of look at, where am I in the capital stack? Am I the
Gotcha.
last mouth to be fed? Because think about it, a bank makes, in this market right now, about 6%. Well, they make 6% because that's generally a first position loan. They're getting paid first. They have
Right.
collateral. They have the ability to take the property back if the borrower doesn't perform. So they get paid very little, right? So the next person in line after the bank should be paid more. And then if there's
Yeah.
somebody in line after that, they should get paid more. So I would want to right size the investment to where I am relative, and how much leverage has been taken on the deal. I've had
Yeah.
I've had deals that are unlevered and they've performed completely fine during the downturn. And I've had deals,
Yeah.
admittedly, that are maybe a little higher levered that have had more struggle, right? So now, if you highly leverage someone and it's something, and you're in and you're out and life is good, but that brings me to my third thing that I look at, which is, how
Yeah.
long is the pro forma? Because the shorter the deal time frame, the more difficult it is to actually hit the projections, in my opinion.
Okay.
Not the other way around. The longer the deal time frame, then the more opportunities you have to hit the projections, right? And the example I'm going to give you is like maybe a 1-year deal where we go in, we get our permits, we develop a property and sell it, right? But maybe we go in and the permit takes an extra year to get, or an extra 6 months to get. Now you're pushing that timeline, but the overall return is the same. So
Yeah.
now your annual rate of return is going down, right? So I don't like the short in and out deals, because you have a bigger chance to miss.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can pull out that timeline to 5 or 6 years or even 10 years, now you've got, you could, in 10 years from now, there could be a full market swing cycle that goes down and completely recovers. So I think of deals like that. And then, but most importantly, never mind what I look at the sponsor. I look at the person behind the
Mhm.
deal. I like to meet with my sponsor, or at least kind of get to know them through either a podcast or, some kind of introductory call. And, and I like vulnerability and honesty in the call. And I have some
Mhm.
ways that I get to that. When I ask people questions, like, I really kind of vet them. Google search is usually like a really good, useful tool. Are they, have they been paying their vendors on time? Or their complaints online? Can you kind of see through some of the complaints? Some people just want to complain, but can you kind of see the
Yeah.
good in what they've been doing? So, yeah, I think that those are kind of the things that I look at when vetting a deal personally.
Nice. So is there any, do you have any opportunities you're working on now, something you can talk about? I know without divulging, addresses and names and
Yeah,
things
no,
like that, but
no, you're
any
fine.
more generals? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we're actually buying 2 deals right now, or one deal with 2 properties in it. And have you ever heard of? You probably have heard of this, but industrial flex space.
Yes.
So we just do store. We just do 100% storage, right? So like these 2
Mhm.
deals we're buying are storage deals, right? They're mom and pop owned. We bought from a mom and pop buyer, or seller, which is great. They weren't doing any marketing or advertising. They weren't raising rents. They weren't optimizing anything, right? And so
Right.
we love that, because we can come in. We're one of the largest operators. We have a unique booking platform that reduces payroll and makes it easier for the customer to pay and book. So that to us, like, increases the value 10%. Then we sell our
Yeah.
tenant insurance. A lot of operators don't do this, but we have our own tenant insurance program. That'll add $1 million or $2 million of value to our facilities day one. I can go into that. But what's cool is when we buy these self-storage facilities, sometimes they come with other real estate, sort of
Okay.
happenstance. And this one I
Mhm.
love because it comes with industrial flex space in the front that's all
Mm.
100% leased. And for the listeners that don't know about that, it's like a blinds company or a gun safe shop or a Pilates studio or a collision center, where they need that like small retail lobby in the front, to kind of take customers in. but then they have like a garage in the back to work on the cars or do the studio or do whatever they're doing. And this is such a hot asset class, but the problem is it's just not a lot of it, right? It's just like they're small little parcels in random places. So we're raising money for that deal right now, so investors can participate. That one's in Castle Rock, Colorado, which is a very affluent suburb of Denver, and then the other one's in Colorado Springs, which is, both are right on I-25. Really nice, 100,000 car drive-by traffic a day. And so we're pretty excited about that. So investors can actually participate in that deal. Our minimums are 100,000 on that deal, and it comes with cash flow. We after 90 days, your cash flow starts monthly, and then you have you of course share on the upside from the sale. So pretty excited about that opportunity.
Yeah, it's pretty nice areas too. I've been out there many times teaching and skiing and hiking and whitewater rafting. It's a great, unbelievable place. So.
From our office in Colorado Springs, from this facility, when you're sitting in the office, you literally Pikes Peak is like right out the window. So it's like,
that's amazing. We did a 14er. We were down in Salida. If you go down to Pueblo and head west, we rafted the Upper Arkansas River. Went to, we just had it was one of my favorite trips. But so everybody listening, if you've never been out there, you got to go. So, a couple things I want to cover. I know we're going to run out of time here pretty quickly, but you mentioned there's a way for people to get some training, and you mentioned the checklist early on. How can where can listeners go and find out about the training that you provide, and before they do the investing, which I think is an unbelievably intelligent way to go about doing this,
I encourage everyone, you've got to understand what you're doing and get educated. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can email me, Ryan, Ryan, at Spartan-investors.com, and we can send you a link to the course. Or, our website is Spartan-investors.com. There's an intake form on there if you want to fill it out. But yeah, my email is a great way to do it. We'll get you the training and the course on that. And then, I can give you a link to that book in the show notes. But yeah, the Academy is great. I mean, it's just all these years of me doing it and all the questions I've been asked by the thousands of investors that we've had. I've basically said, I'm making a training. I just buckled down for a week and I just basically made these little short, suspenseful 3-minute videos and then sequentially put it all together. We even have some like questions in there that, help kind of, solidify the information and knowledge. So it's pretty cool. It's people have really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I've really enjoyed this, and I'm gonna let you wrap things up, but I just want to tell you one thing real quick. So I'll mention their first names. So I became friends with two. They were U.S. Air pilots. U.S. Air became part of American Airlines. But Pete and Terry, they were like two peas in a pod. They were like brothers from other mothers, and so we all became good friends with the same age group. And of course, they wanted to invest, and I'm teaching them how to invest. And they told me one time, they just for fun, they really weren't supposed to be flying. They were getting, like they call them bumper seats. They go from one hub to another. In any case, Pete was going down the corridor with the walking cane and the dark glasses, like he was seeing impaired. And then Terry had his arm in a sling. So they're walking down with their partial uniforms on, and going down the corner to get to the gate to go to the plane. But you could see everyone just staring at him. They were telling me this whole story. We're out getting a bite. I'm just cracking up. And I said, I can't believe you guys actually do that. And the things they told me, I said, guys, I don't know if I'm going to fly again anymore. But it really is. It is still the safest way to travel, obviously. And pilots.
Totally. Yeah. And by the way, I do have a podcast. It's called Passive Income Pilots.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so if the listeners want another like and subscribe, follow us on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube, whatever it is. Passive Income Pilots. We started it 3.5 years ago, and we air an episode weekly, and it's for passive investors that want to learn. It's me and Tate Duryea, who's the co-host. We're both airline pilots, so we give it from our perspective as an airline pilot. I mean, we basically call in all the experts that we've met over the years and share their stories with the flying community, because, I mean, this stuff is all new to everybody, right? So tens of thousands of followers now. It's crazy. We're having a conference in the fall, and so anyway, just really excited about it. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you doing this, and so the podcast Passive Income Pilot. Email is ryan@spartan-investors.com. Of course, that's the website too. And any final words of wisdom from you? Maybe something it could be for like a grandfather, mother, a mentor you had early on, something that really sticks with you, like a mantra,
My mantra is there's only two people in life that you want to impress: the 7-year-old version of yourself and the 70 version of yourself. Be who you want to and impress the person that you want to be as as you get older and look back on life and want to be a mentor. So that's kind of my mantra.
Well, I appreciate that. And we're, let's say, cut from the same cloth as far as the mentorship goes. To me, when I was younger, I always wonder why do people who are like in their 60s teaching and training, why don't you just keep doing what they're doing because they're so good at it? But the thing is when you're an entrepreneur, you kind of need some freshness every now and then. And the thing about training is every student is different, every part of the country is different, and it's just very fulfilling. It's unbelievable that there has to be remuneration to have an honor and integrity in the business relationship. But boy, if you help other people get ahead in life, get to where they can be financially independent and financially free, you've got a friend for life. I've got Brian, I got more friends from doing business than I ever got from business from friends, So, yeah,
100%.
I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, Gary. Yep. Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
You're very welcome. For everybody listening, for you too, Ryan, everybody, take care of yourself. God bless you and all your loved ones. And we will see you. Oh, by the way, plugger, look for Passive Income Pilot. Look for that podcast, okay? But also make sure you please leave a review for this one, because I think you guys got some gold nuggets today from Ryan. We really appreciate the reviews. That gives us the feedback we need. We don't get paid for this. It's a community service, and so we love your feedback. Thank you for doing that. And we'll see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.